Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, I gotta give a mighty hearty station and congratulations over to the EXP, The Experience. They just crossed 2,000 subscribers here on YouTube. And to celebrate that, what they're going to be doing starting next week is giving away 20 CGC graded comic books. Just giving them away across all their shows across the entire week, including the show I do, Comic Collectibles, every Monday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So next Monday, be sure to join me, Rex, John, and others from Dynamic Forces as we celebrate 2,000 subscribers over at the EXP, The Experience. Link in the description below. Check out that show. We'll be giving away a slab, and check out all their other shows because lots of great CGC books are going to be given away in celebration of that 2,000 subscriber milestone. So there you go. Housekeeping out of the way. We always start with a pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, The Sacrificers, issue number 1. So I'm going to be very honest with y'all. I still have not read any of my free comic book day books. Like at all. Like when I read TMNT vs. Street Fighter number 1, I felt like I was lost. Yeah, it's because I didn't read the free comic book day, right? Now, Image for free comic book day released a preview or a first chapter, prelude, something for The Sacrificers. I don't know. Because I still haven't read it. It's in there. Maybe I should have read it in preparation for this video, but I didn't. That being said, even without reading that book, I loved The Sacrificers number 1. Definitely the most imaginative book of the week. It's an okay week. It's a small week, but this one really stood out because a cool, solid concept. Basically, these godlike entities that require their subjects to annually throw up a sacrifice, right? And so there's this one story about this family where one of their children is the sacrifice, and then there's the story of the gods themselves and their annual gala and all this kind of jazz, right? But what really anchored this in as the pick of the week for me was the amazing artwork in this book from Max Fiamora. I loved the artwork. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Brilliant, beautiful coloring. The coloring is not listed right here. That's the wrong page. So let's find... Rick Remender drew this. Rick Remender wrote this. Max Fiamora is the artist. Dave McHague is the colorist. Russ Wooten is the letterer. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it had a great sense of composition, a great sense of flow. It didn't read too long, didn't read too short, and it just has these big, masterful moments that really bring you in. A really cool story. It has some heart to it, but it also is just a very enjoyable experience and visually quite stunning, and one of the most visually stunning comics of the week, but not the only one. Anyway, then we got Spawn here with issue 344. We're going to go ahead and give cover of the week to Spawn because J.H. Williams III has been doing this like Spawn connecting cover. Now we got all 4 of them. I'm very excited to piece it together, see what it looks like from a real life above perspective. I don't know what I'm saying there. Anyway, this issue of Spawn is just like every other issue of Spawn. It's slowly building up to something, slowly making that tread up to something more epic. This one, now that Sin's forces have kind of like started this entire war in hell, Spawn has to go back to Earth and try to recruit a new team. He already has the Scorched. They're dealing with their own stuff, and maybe they're a part of it too, but there are other beings out there, like Haunt, like Gunslinger Spawn, that Al has to go and talk to. So this was another one of those issues where it's the slow build, but at least there's movement in every issue of Spawn, including Al building the team and the events of the final pages, which really do kind of signify a gear shift in where this war, who has the advantage and the benefit, right? Spawn, though, continues to be one of the best books in comic books, best deals in comic books. Cardstock cover, $2.99, explosive action. That's all the Image I read this week. A very light week for me from Image. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got Death of the Venomverse, issue number 1. It's all been building up to this. All the Venomverse stuff, even all the Carnage stuff. So Carnage, the symbiote, is on its own, no host, has all of these crazy powers that was built up in the Rom V Alex Packnadell run, right? And Carnage is now going through the multiverse, killing every version of Venom that they can find to absorb their power, their energy, their codices, and all this kind of stuff, right? So we are still dealing with the Donny Cates, King in Black, Absolute Carnage type stuff. We're playing around with those ideas. And this didn't feel as exciting as the buildup that was happening in Rom V's Carnage, but it wasn't a bad book. It was actually pretty solid. It had a nice flow to it. Sandoval's artwork was decent enough. I enjoyed it. So if you're a Venom nut and you just want to see Carnage going around across the multiverse, killing different versions of Venom, and it's basically Spider-Verse, the first Spider-Verse, but take Moreland out and just, it's Carnage. But if you want to see that, that's what you're going to get. It's pretty decently written, pretty much decently drawn and executed. So I thought it was a pretty solid book. Then we got What If Dark Venom. This is basically what if Benjamin Grimm, the Thing, became Venom. And I liked this story. It's written by Stephanie Phillips. It's got some decent artwork from Jethro Morales. And it's an interesting kind of take on the whole this man, this monster kind of thing. It is set back in the days when Reed Richards was observing and studying the symbiote, and Thing shows up, right? And he's just like sad. He connects with the symbiote. He becomes Venom. But it didn't go in a direction that I thought it would go into, but it was actually very satisfying and very tragic. And obviously that connection to Fantastic Four, so I personally like it. But out of these What If Darks so far, this has been my favorite. And it does rely on a classic story, a classic touchstone moment, but it also feels like something that hasn't actually been done. So I really appreciated What If Dark Venom. Then we got Magneto, issue number 1, the start of a new miniseries by J.M. DeMatteis, Todd Nauck, and Rosenberg there on the coloring. And this is set during the days when Magneto was a good guy. He was the leader of the New Mutants. He wore the purple costume with a big giant M on it. When I first started reading X-Men comics, that was what was going on. Actually, when I first started reading X-Men comics, I was so young. I was reading stuff that my stepdad had that was older. So in particular, it was the storyline from back in the Dave Cockrum and Chris Claremont days where they go to Scotland, I believe, to Banshee's family's castle, and Juggernaut and Black Tom are there. I still love those issues. I have those issues. I have the classic X-Men issues as well. I love those. But anyway, when I started reading X-Men, Magneto was in this purple costume with this big M. To me, I just thought that's what Magneto was supposed to be. But this goes back into those days. J.M. DeMatteis still knows how to write a comic book. If you're not super familiar with those days, this may come across just a little bit goofy and cheesy, and it's not Todd Nauck's best artwork I've ever seen, but it was still kind of decent. But I think it's only going to work if you have a connection to that era of Magneto. Strange Academy, Miles Morales, issue number 1. Strange Academy was one of Marvel's best books over the last few years. Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos. Loved that book. Really good stuff. Kind of a bit of a rushed ending. They promise it will be back, but this ain't it. This ain't it. This is just some other people coming in, doing a series of 3 one-shots that team up with other characters like Miles Morales. Next up is Moon Knight, something like that. It's fine, and it's cool, and it does kind of deal with some of the lingering effects from the end of Strange Academy. However, it doesn't really satisfy that itch that I was wanting. It's okay, but it also feels very skippable. But these one-shots are connected all through one story, so if you want more Strange Academy and you have to have it, check it out. It does come across as very educational, like math is cool, so I guess that's kind of cool. Moon Knight number 26 here. Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Moon Knight, our dude, he went through a lot of stuff in the last issue, in the celebratory issue number 25. So did Hunter's Moon here. But Hunter's Moon's kind of get the spotlight here. This whole run by Jed MacKay started with Moon Knight going through therapy, talking his stuff out with his therapist. Now Hunter's Moon is doing the same thing. He's in that seat, so it's a nice kind of like inversion or reversal of the beginning of this run in the midst of everything really heating up to its grand finale, because they have announced, I think, that this book will be Or at least they announced Mark Spector's. I don't know what they're doing with this book, but I hope they just keep it as is, because Jed MacKay has been doing a really solid job of telling one-and-done stories as part of a larger narrative, and, you know, that's how superhero comic books are supposed to be done. So Moon Knight's been good, and this issue is no exception. This was a pretty decent issue of Fantastic Four here with issue number 10. Ryan North's been doing an okay job. I really appreciate what he's doing with trying to do the self-contained stories. Maybe there's something larger building in, and this is a cool idea for a story, but the execution just wasn't quite there. I've talked about maybe this book, the artwork, the coloring maybe comes across a little bit too bright and shiny, and this is a very dark story, and it does kind of take this darker approach to the coloring. It doesn't feel as bright as some of these others, but it doesn't quite feel like it matches the tone of the story. But without revealing too much about it, the Fantastic Four try to go save a spaceship in which their space-time engine is malfunctioning, so time is going by really fast for the people in the spaceship, but the Fantastic Four, it's going at their normal speed, right? So it's got an interesting kind of way that it deals with that structurally, but it just kind of took a long time to get to the point. Kind of just a little bit long-winded. That's what I'll say about Ryan North's run on Fantastic Four. I like the stories, I like the concepts, I like the structures for the most part. The dialogue, the narration, it all comes across just a bit too long-winded for me. Then we got Doctor Strange here with issue number 6. Jed MacKay doing what Jed MacKay does. Self-contained stories as part of a larger narrative. This is a story that we've seen many times before, but Doctor Strange gets called away to do this battle, this war, that's in another dimension or another time or something like that, and it takes place over centuries, right? And Doctor Strange goes through hell and back again, and when he gets back again, everything's normal, or is it? So it's one of those kind of stories. It's interesting. What I really liked was Juan Gideon's artwork was actually super solid in this issue, so I thought that was dope. Then we got Warlock Rebirth, issue number 5, the final issue of this Ron Lim, Ron Mars revisit to the early 90s Warlock in the Infinity Watch type vibe. A very predictable ending, but a very satisfying ending. I've enjoyed what they've been doing in the pages of Warlock Rebirth and Silver Surfer Rebirth, and we got another Silver Surfer Rebirth coming, which kind of springs out from the end of this one. So I like the focus on the old school, I like the classic vibe and feel to it, and this is my era, and it still works for me today. So Warlock Rebirth was pretty dope. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have the conclusion of some of these Night Terrors miniseries, including Night Terrors Batman issue number 2. You know, I said that none of the Night Terrors tie-ins are super essentially plugged into the main series. That remains true, but some of them have more of a connection than others, and I said out of all of them, Night Terrors Batman seemed to be plugged in just a little bit more than others. Well, that continues here in Night Terrors Batman number 2, because it does bring us to a type of a conclusion for Batman's nightmare, but it also springs off into the finale of what Night Terrors is going to be. This one feels very plugged in. I don't think it's going to give us essential information that's not going to be given to us by the writer Joshua Williamson in the main title, but if you want that auxiliary feeling, you want your stuff to feel a little bit more connected, you might want to check this one out. And as I've been saying over the course of Night Terrors, which I think has been a pretty decent series, Nightmare on Elm Street in the DC Universe, basically, in a way, all the heroes, everybody in the DCU, they fall asleep, they're going through their nightmares because some new villain, Insomnia, is going through everybody's nightmares trying to find the Nightmare Stone. I like the connection to Sandman, I like the connection to classic Justice League and Justice Society type stuff, but I also just like the idea of exploring these characters' nightmares, especially when the artists get the memo right. This is meant to be a horror comic. So you got Gillian March doing an absolutely fantastic job with the artwork in here. Some great composition, some great layouts, some great coloring, some great line work, and some really great character work from Joshua Williamson that leaps right into the finale upcoming of Night Terrors. Then we got Night Terrors Black Adam, issue number 2. I, at the end of issue number 1, said, hey, this feels like it might be maybe a bit more connected than it initially led us to believe, and by the end of Black Adam number 2, yeah, it's kind of leading right into the finale of Night Terrors, but it's not essential. But when Black Adam shows up, just know that he woke up from his own nightmare. But one of the things I like the most about this is Jeremy Hahn, who killed it on a book I absolutely adore called Red Mother, doing some DC Shazam Black Adam superhero action. That being said, it has, oh man, look at that page right there. For instance, that's when the artist gets the memo. This is meant to be a nightmare, whether it's structurally or thematically or definitely visually. It's got to be visually a nightmare. Black Adam was actually a pretty cool one. It was a light, breezy read, in no way essential, but I do like how it connects itself directly into the end of Night Terrors. Night Terrors, the Joker, issue number 2. I loved issue number 1. I loved issue number 2. Matthew Rosenberg, who's been writing the most recent Joker series, is doing the writing on this one. The artwork by Raphael is actually pretty solid. It's the Joker's nightmare, and the Joker's nightmare is this. During a fight, a skirmish, if you will, with Batman, Batman accidentally dies. So then the Joker doesn't have a purpose to life anymore. So what does he do? He decides he's going to join Wayne Industries, Wayne Corporation, and he's going to have like an office job, just a mid-level office job, and that is his nightmare, doing company baseball games and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, there's a new Batman on the streets in the nightmares of Joker. This has been really fun. It's not essential at all to Night Terrors in the slightest, but it's a really cool exploration of what a Joker nightmare could possibly be. Night Terrors Poison Ivy issue number 2. If you are a hardcore Poison Ivy fan and you are following the G. Willow Wilson run, you definitely maybe want to read this because it's picking up on some things thematically that have been laid down that are being worked out by Pamela and other characters in this series. That being said, as a Night Terrors tie-in, it didn't really quite work for me. I didn't really like the conclusion that much, and it was the artwork that I didn't like the most, but at the same time, it is kind of nightmarish with the big eyes and the creepy smiles and stuff, so I don't know. This is very much plugged into the ongoing thematics and psychology that's being explored in Poison Ivy. So if you're reading that one, check it out, but it's nothing really to do too much with the main Night Terrors. Neither has this one. Now, Night Terrors Ravager number 1 really blew me away, and I thought it felt a little bit maybe more significant. In the long run, it's not very significant for Night Terrors overall, but very significant to the character of Ravager. Maybe some of this stuff is going to be explored in the pages of Stormwatch, but I don't know, like, I haven't really been liking that Stormwatch stuff that's in Batman Brave and the Bold, but I really like this exploration of the character of Ravager, her fears, her nightmares, and Dexter Soy on the artwork totally gets it. This is the nightmare book. This is a horror comic, so we gotta have something that looks gnarly. We gotta have something that looks gross and evil and heinous. Let me find a good shot here. Can I get a good shot? I'm sure I've already missed it. Let me get a good shot of the artwork here. I showed you that page, didn't I? Did I show you that page? Yep, I sure did. Hey, how's everybody doing? Oh, I'm just flipping through a comic. There you go. Let's just look at that. Like, that's some cool stuff, right? Dexter Soy's awesome. I liked that. I thought it was great. DC's got some books, too, that are not connected to Night Terrors, including Justice Society of America, number 5. This is the end of the first arc of Justice Society of America, but the book is not over because at the end, it's about to tie in with everything from Stargirl, The Lost Children. I really liked this. I thought it was great. It was a cool new setup for this new iteration of the Justice Society. How it connects to the past, how it connects to the future, and where it is now, and where we're going moving forward. So I really liked it. I thought it was solid. Jeff Johns doing Justice Society of America. This book has been late, like hella late. We can blame Mikhail Hanen, I'm quite sure, for that one. However, I really do like it. I think it's kind of worth the wait because Jeff Johns doing Justice Society of America, yeah, we need that at DC. Then we got Adventures of Superman, John Kent, issue number 6, the grand finale of the Injustice saga. It was alright. It was pretty good. It was fine. Like, it's got like kind of a dumb, cheesy ending, but also an ending that makes a lot of sense for this character, especially the way Tom Taylor writes Jonathan. So it was alright. It was cool. It was interesting, but to be honest, I mean, I appreciate the Injustice tie-in, and it's cool because Tom Taylor gets to go back and revisit that world, but at the same time, it would have been cool if this was just Superman versus Ultraman the whole time. I would have been cool with the pitch that we were sold. This Injustice variation, I mean, it's alright, it's cool, it's okay. Steelworks number 3. So Steelworks number 1. This is written by Michael Dorn, by the way, who did the voice of Steel in the animated series in the 90s. Also played Worf in Star Trek. actually plays Worf in Star Trek. I guess he was just recently in Picard Season 3, which I haven't seen, because I thought 1 was okay, but I didn't like the ending. I did not like Season 2 of Picard. People tell me to watch Season 3. I don't know if I need to believe them. I need you to tell me in the comments, should I check out Picard Season 3? As a hardcore TNG fan, should I check it out? Because the end of Picard Season 1 and pretty much the entirety of Season 2 just pissed me off. Anyway, Steelworks. Issue number 1, I didn't like. Issue number 2 fooled me into thinking I might like this book. Issue number 3, let me know. Nope. Robbie, you were right the first time. This book's just got a lot of talking, a lot of pretension, there's some interesting stuff going on, but nothing we haven't seen before. So, like, honestly, it's just kind of skippable. I mean, I like Steel as much as the next person, honestly. Like, I was, 12 years old with the death of Superman, the reign of the Superman, and all that stuff. So, like, I'm here for it, but I just need something with a little bit more oomph and a little bit less just dictating, if that makes sense. So we got Sandman Universe Special Thessaly, which is billed as a pivotal chapter in the Nightmare Country saga. And how important is it going to be? I don't know, but if this setup pays off in the pages of Nightmare Country, you're going to be upset that you missed this. We got Maria Lovett on the artwork, and that's cool. And I like this. I actually like the book. I like the exploration of these characters. There's this one woman. She's got a couple different partners. She's unhappy with her life. Her partners are kind of using her for their own purposes and not necessarily for what she wants, and she's not really thinking about what she's getting out of it. Meanwhile, she meets the witch Thessaly, and that's been kind of tied. Oh, shouldn't show you that page. Not at all. I can show you this way. I like the artwork. I thought it was cool. It was a nice story, decent story. I am kind of falling out of what Tynan's doing with Nightmare Country and stuff. It's starting to get a bit convoluted to me. Just tell me a good story all the way through. I don't need all these tie-ins, one-shots, this, that, this, leading to this, that. We got to have like pins and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. The book itself was pretty good, though. Then we got Peacemaker Tries Hard, issue number 4. Kyle Starks and Steve Pugh doing what they've been doing, which is just kind of take that spirit of the James Gunn Peacemaker show and carry it forward in a comic book form. Outside of continuity, able to do its own thing, able to be irreverent, crude, and rude, and just so much fun. And this one, Peacemaker goes up against, was it Snowflame, the DC villain who's fueled by cocaine? Like, given powers when he does cocaine. I mean, come on. You know that that's perfect for Peacemaker. And if they don't integrate that into Peacemaker Season 2, they are totally missing a golden opportunity. A white, glistening, snow-like opportunity. Conan the Barbarian, issue number 1. This is Conan being launched from Titan Comics. Marvel lost the rights to Conan. Now it's over at Titan. And they're giving us a no-holds-barred, classic, old-school Conan book. I thought it was really solid. It's written by Zeb Wells, who is no stranger to the character, but it's got artwork by Rob De La Torre. It straight up at times looks like John Buscema did the artwork in this book, and that's definitely the vibe they're going for. It's bloody. It's got the prose-like style and quality of dialogue that the original stuff had. I used to sneak into my stepdad's closet and grab up his Savage Tales of Conan books, and this took me right back to that. Violent, sexy, could be a bit more sexy. I'm sure that's to come in future issues, but this is a Conan the Barbarian series that is definitely going to please old school fans 110%. Plus a Mike Mignola cover. Come on. More fantasy love for your buck. We got Fire and Ice, issue number 1. You know what? I've already given cover of the week to J.H. Williams III for all 4 Spawn covers. I did that actually a few weeks ago. Let me give cover of the week to this Bill Sienkiewicz Fire and Ice book. Now, Fire and Ice is an animated, I think, fantasy movie from like Frank Frazetta Ideas and Imagery. Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway were a part of that. Dynamite has reinvigorated this license. I have never watched Fire and Ice. I had planned maybe we could do a movie night or something leading into this book, but unfortunately scheduling just didn't work. I've never seen that movie. That being said, I had no problem enjoying this book. I really, really liked it. If fantasy is your bag, you are in for a treat this week with Conan the Barbarian and Fire and Ice. The artwork by Leo Manco, for instance, is splendid. It is so freaking good. This is a gorgeous book and one of the most gorgeous books I have seen from Dynamite, like ever. Ever. The artwork in this book is absolutely top-notch. The pacing was good, the characterizations, the world building. Like I said, I've never seen that movie. I had no problem jumping into this and just being amazed at Leonardo Manco's artwork and the story that Bill Willingham of Fables fame has been telling us. So I really liked it. Plus that Bill Sienkiewicz cover, that's the cover of the week. But we also got this Frank Frazetta cover. It's hard to pick which one you want to get when you buy Fire and Ice. So I say buy them all. There's some really good covers out there. And the more Dynamite books you buy, the more wings I get. No, that's a lie. Anyway, we got Joseph Michael Lisner, Bill Sienkiewicz, Frank Frazetta, Leonardo Manco, Francisco Francavilla. Some really great covers out there. But y'all, it was really hard for me to pick between these two. But I'm going to give cover of the week to Bill Sienkiewicz. Then we got Once Upon a Time at the End of the World with issue number 8. Loving this series. Jason Aaron is doing a hell of a job with this book. It's about these two people who meet at the end of the world. They meet as kids in the first arc. This is in the second arc where they're a little bit older and they're building this like society that's based on like polyamory and openness and communication. But just like most things, this perfect society, almost this near perfect society that they're building where people feel loved and accepted, and it starts, there's something underneath it that starts to bubble up, almost literally, that's going to endanger everything. So I actually really like some of the exploration being done thematically here about some of the stuff that it's talking about, right? So, I don't know, it hits me personally. I really like this book. The artwork is okay. It's not as good as Arc 1, but it does work. The emotions are raw, and they work too. And it's got a sense of tragedy to it, but it's almost a sense of inevitability with its tragedy that comes across and permeates almost the whole damn thing. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 8. Absolutely great. Project Rise? Project Reese? I think they're going for Project Rise. I took German, and I think an IE is supposed to have an E sound, like a Reese. So I think this is supposed, like, I don't know though, whatever. This is an Indiana Jones type almost thing where a group of treasure hunters in the 50s are trying to find some kind of artifact or something that the Nazis had and are buried, so they're like fighting Nazis or they're teaming up with Nazis to try to figure out what's going on. It was all right. It was decent, but for something that is supposed to, within the story, have that Indiana Jones kind of vibe, the artwork feels a bit static, feels a bit stiff, a bit constrained. I think this could have really excelled with a little bit more looser structure visually and make some of those adventure scenes really kind of pop. So I thought it was just all right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, The Lost Years, issue number 5. This is the final issue of this series for now, because it does set up a continuation. We've already got that announcement at San Diego Comic-Con. But this was a decent enough series. It was okay. It didn't hit me as hard, nor was it as good as the initial Last Ronin. But one of my favorite things about this series is Kevin Eastman pulling out his duotone boards that he's saved since the 80s and doing a few pages here and there. I really liked it in the Lost Days special. In this one, we just got one page of it, and it's alright. But I like the conclusion. I like the Kevin Eastman cover. I think it's decent. Is it as good as The Last Ronin was? No. We knew it wouldn't be. But it's still pretty decent. If you want to stay in that world, you can stay in it in the pages there. The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos, issue number 2. I started reading this book. I found it very difficult to remember what the first issue even had in it, right? Like, I really was, like, in the beginning of this book, kind of lost. The book, though, brought me right back up to speed and then helped reset its identity in my head, because it's almost like a more modern, youthful take on Dr. Frankenstein, Dracula, and maybe even the Wolfman. So I really appreciate that. When I started reading this book, I was like not really invested, but as it continued to progress, I found myself getting more engaged, more enthralled, more reminded of what this story was, and more excited about how its identity is starting to form and shift and shape, at least in my head. So Christopher Chaos, issue number 2, I thought was pretty good. That's co-written by James Tynion with Tate Bromball right there, and the artwork was actually really, really solid from Goodhart there. All right, then we got Sins of the Salton Sea, issue number 3. This one's all right. It's not visually dynamic, and that's a problem for me. Like, it would be an okay TV series on, like, FX or something right after Justified, City Primeval or something like that. But it just doesn't work for me as a comic book. It doesn't have a lot of visual stuff to it. And this issue is just a lot of kind of like exposition and kind of just telling you what the story's about and things like that. So it was an alright setup, but it hasn't really maintained any kind of momentum for me. So I may be dropping out of that. So that's what I read. Let's go over it again. Sins of the Salton Sea, probably going to be dropping out of that one. Christopher Chaos is starting to solidify its identity for me. Last Ronin Lost Years was not as good as the initial series, but still pretty fun. Project Rice was alright, but could have really been saved with some more kinetic artwork there to help that adventurous flow really work. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, really loving this. Personally hit me. Poly representation. So that's awesome. Fire and Ice, cover of the week. By the way, smell of the week went to Once Upon a Time at the End of the World as well. Boom books are smelling really good right now. Fire and Ice, though, cover of the week to Bill Sienkiewicz. Really great book. Even though I didn't watch that animated series, I think it's an animated movie, right? Conan the Barbarian, perfect for old school Conan fans. You're not going to be let down. Peacemaker tries hard. If you like James Gunn's Peacemaker and you're not reading this book, you're doing yourself a disservice. The Thessaly Sandman book, it's good, but I'm kind of getting tired of what's going on with that whole thing. Steelworks was not good for me. The Adventures of Superman, John Kent, a decent enough conclusion. Justice Society of America, though, really like this, and I like how now we're gearing up to tie into more fully of what's going on. Plus, a lot of tie-ins to what Jeff Johns and company were doing with Flashpoint Beyond. Night Terrors, Ravager, really cool book. Loved both issues, especially the artwork. Night Terrors, Poison Ivy, pretty much essential only for those that are super hardcore into Poison Ivy and don't want to skip it for 2 months in their lives. Night Terrors, the Joker, this has been a treat. This has been really fun. Even if you don't read the major Night Terrors book, you could just read these 2 issues and really enjoy it as a Joker fan. Night Terrors, Black Adam, love seeing Jeremy Hahn do some DC action, want to see him do more. Night Terrors, Batman, the most plugged in Night Terrors tie-in, not super essential, but definitely worth it. Solid artwork, a great story and exploration of Batman's, Bruce's nightmares. Warlock Rebirth, really like that classic Ron Lim, Ron Mars, old school effect. Doctor Strange, one and done story, great artwork, but it's a story we've seen before. Fantastic Four number 10, not quite executing it perfectly, maybe a bit too long-winded. Moon Knight, another great issue of Moon Knight, really like this focus on Hunter's Moon. Strange Academy, Miles Morales, if you're a super hardcore Strange Academy fan and you're just itching for the next issue, this ain't it. That's all I'm going to say. Magneto number 1, if you are connected to that school of Magneto when he's like running the New Mutants, right, and he's got the purple costume, definitely want to check that out. It feels very classic. What If Dark Venom, really did like this one. Thought it had some interesting ideas. Death of the Venomverse wasn't bad. It was kind of solid. It was decent. It was alright. It was alright. That's not bad, right? Spawn, continuing to do what Spawn does. But The Sacrificers, great artwork, great story, and a great pace to it that really never feels long-winded, never gets stiff or stale or stagnant, but just all the way through works. And even if I had to have read the Free Comic Book Day to understand more about the world or what's behind this, I didn't, and I enjoyed it. So Pick of the Week goes to that. So what are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups, for sure. Once again, wait, am I? Wait, did he just say... Anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Station, keep on reading. Pop, pop, boom!